I'm going to start with gratitudes and, you know, Black and Indigenous, it'll take a while. So it takes a lot of people to make this kind of thing to come together. So first, a gratitude to all the staff members and donors of 108 Contemporary, to Chris Wallard, the preparator, for his expertise, and for Megan, the intern who pitch hit with the chalk lines on her first day of internship, and the Tulsa Artist Fellowship. A big up to the staff and volunteers of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation, Justice for Greenwood, Focus Black Oklahoma, Tri-City Collective, Black Wall Street Times, the Oklahoma Eagle, and the African American Resource Center of the Tulsa Library, to Anita and Yadika Fields War Club, all of you for your tremendous work reckoning with the archive that informs so much of how I continue to listen to this place. I'd like to honor my grandparents, parents, and their siblings for introducing me to beauty as we make it from what we have, and finding it in the world around us. I'd like to thank the tallgrass prairie and our loose buffalo cousins. Thank you to Francesca Alcantara, to Samim Farkande, Hope Tucker, Carol Kalafatic, Netani Nota, for art dates and feedback sessions that inspired this collection of works. To SF for their zebras, New Orleans Plague Pod, Treva Ellison, Aquia Smith, Gallery of the Streets, The People's Community Sing, Black Life Response, Jennifer DeClue, and Tiffany Jones for grounding and connection to the root and the water. To Maite and Sujini for casting spells. And in Tulsa, I'd like to thank the ancestors, survivors, and descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre, the ancestors, survivors, and descendants of forced removal from and to these lands. Ashe. The weavers, artisans, and craftsfolks at Waterworks Art Center, and especially Lynn Tedder for her instruction, Leanne and Ingrid for their camaraderie and support, Hans, Yusuf, and Trudy for their encouragement, and Faith for selling me a loom. This work is inspired by Sylvia Wynter, Bell Hooks, Alexis Pauline Gums, General Harriet Tubman, Colleen Smith's exhibition, We Already Have What We Need, a conversation with Lily Bell about weaving and settler colonialism, and to Mary Madison for the tremendous work of Plantation Weavers Remember, an oral history. Also, a profound gratitude to Laura Nelson for bringing me to this place. A sorrow song, a fugitive space, the quiet of our interior sovereignty. Francesca Alcantara and I invite you to Strange and Oppositional, a collective meditation on Black feminist fugitive aesthetics, mourning, and liberation. The exhibition, project, conversation between us and with those who join us in this draws its name from feminist scholar badass Bell Hooks's 1990 essay, An Aesthetics of Blackness, Strange and Oppositional. I had first been introduced to this essay in a lecture given by Hooks and her collection of essays entitled Yearning. That was in 1991. I've returned to it over and over again as in my own practice and as an artist and educator. Last year, I returned to this essay as an anchor to a tribute for a radio show I did on Blues U and a series of short videos dedicated to Bell Hooks and her call for critical engagement in Black expressive culture and politics. In the essay, Hooks states, aesthetics, then, is more than a philosophy or theory of art and beauty. It is a way of inhabiting space, a particular location, a way of looking and becoming. It is not organic. So this way of seeing and knowing emerges from African indigenous legacies and lifeways that honor objects as sacred and animate, while at the same time reckoning with the persistent presence and structures of racial capitalism, a system of relationships where objects, people, and land are understood as property, where they could be bought, sold, kidnapped, sequestered, and stolen. Strange and Oppositional points to an aesthetics that draws the beauty, terror, and celebration of our lives as African diasporic people. This listening and reckoning intersects with my art practice in that it's a poetics, a process, a transfiguration, a meditation that's determined to manifest autonomy for Black and Indigenous peoples across diaspora. It's a rememory, vision, and movement. The research gravitates towards revealing and venerating radical histories, resistant, fugitive, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, outsider, queer, feminist. I explore time-based media to deploy a poetics of intimacy, immediacy, embodiment, witness, and rememory to reach for what Kevin Quashie describes as the sovereignty of quiet. I embrace abstraction and resist overdetermined narrative and conspicuous hypervisibility of Blackness and the erasure of indigeneity in our popular culture. And video and sound, which I think of as immediate and intimate, guide me as foundational media. And you'll see in this exhibition, each tableau that I've created is anchored by a video meditation. Studio practice is research-based and includes movement, writing, and sound as generative forces. And in all of this, I search for a kind of quiet, a visual vocabulary to describe the beauty and terror of Black and Indigenous experiences on Turtle Island, and in this case, Indian territory. I execute this multidisciplinary practice as a collective member or as a key collaborator, like with Francesca, as a solo artist, and in sites of learning and exploration in community. Near the end of her essay, Bell Hooks makes this provocative statement, quote, "Innovative African-American artists have rarely documented their process. Their critical thinking on the subject of aesthetics, accounts of the theories that inform their work are necessary and essential. Hence, my concern with opposing any standpoint that devalues this critical project." So I'll honor this call from Bell Hooks by sharing most about the process and the how of the elements that I've contributed to this exhibition. Inhabiting space, the particularity of location. Do you believe that space can give life or take it away, that space has power? Listen, learn, contribute. So Strange and Oppositional presents a critical, reflective, political art practice that considers generations and histories of Indigenous, Black, and Brown migrations. It honors where we come from and is a deep listening to where we are. It is an offering. So early in the discussions and decisions that Francesca and I made in conversation about how to set up this space included creating a collective altar anchored by the water pouring sonic meditation, making a chalk line or drawing around the space, and reorienting the space to the cardinal directions. So the collective altar, which is in this area in the west, is an offering for folks to slow down and to contribute to the space. It is also felt necessary as a way of acknowledging the legacies of violence of white settler colonialism on this land that we're on. The displacement of indigenous peoples, Caddo, Cherokee, Muskogee, Osage, and African peoples, and the legacy of the Tulsa Race Massacre and the erasure of Greenwood that continues to this day. In many ways, we are on a graveyard. In listening to this place, that is deeply felt. Ashe, or Remember Your Body is Water, is a sonic meditation that came to me after an art date and feedback session between Francesca, Natani, Ahimsa, and myself last fall. In considering a way for visitors to participate and contribute to an installation, I imagined a very simple score, pouring water from one vessel to another, and amplifying it as a sound piece. Like the 3 sonic meditations for the tallgrass prairie, the invitation is to slow down and remember our relationships to the elements, to our relatives, like the buffalo and the grasses, and to each other. I also put a call out to Black queer family to contribute to a collective altar that could hold the space, hold our artworks, our memories, our freedom dreams, and to be a container. We're grateful to Treva Ellison for their contribution, and by extension to everyone who has set and released intentions into the pine baskets of this altar piece. And I'm happy to speak more about this if folks have questions later. So Francesca had this vision of creating a horizon line across the gallery, across these walls, allowing for levels and layers to display and hang the artworks, to remind us of the changing light and time of sunrise and sunset, and to bind the space. So these chalk lines were the very first gestures that we made together in the space. It's a collective drawing that set the installation in motion and bound us to each other's practice. While the city of Tulsa orients to a grid and calls that north, south, east, west, we oriented this exhibition to the cardinal directions. So we shifted everything to a diagonal. And I'll kind of move a little bit so you can see, but so Francesca's Bags or Bucket of Blood series is set on a diagonal formation of a flock. And my tableau then hold down all the corners, south, west, north, east. Additionally, we play and experiment with levels and layers, placing the artworks in relation to the horizon and each other, reminding us of the elements, earth, sky, water, and fire, while also reflecting the layers of history and the place and layers of meaning. This reorientation opens up the space of the gallery and allows for meandering, slowing down, contemplation, questioning, and pause. Orientation of time. Look, she tells me, what the light does to color. And I'll sort of put our attention on this area, but you all don't have to move. You can just be inside it. But so you know what I'm referring to anyway. So in the South, rule reverse. Rule is share, rule is laugh, rule is love. Maskarade time. Rule reverse is an invocation and a provocation to open up space and time, to release us from capitalist time, to practice freedom. Influenced by Sylvia Wynter's theorizing and Junkanoo play entitled Maskarade, I made this no-sew Igungun masquerade ancestor suit from repurposed materials. So that's the suit, the Igungun suit right there. So it's made from repurposed materials, mostly bed sheets, t-shirts, pillowcases, and I made this for Carnival 2020. The fringe is made from each strip tied through a slit that's made in the base garment, so there's no sewing. The suit, and there's no glue. The suit and the headpiece meandered through the streets of New Orleans on Mardi Gras Day, and then soon after, during pandemic lockdown, a story came to me of Spy Boy. And this is in the Mardi Gras Indian tradition. There's a spy boy that scouts before the tribe comes, before the chief and the queen arrive. So a spy boy is scouting the streets of the 6th Ward and hears a crushing and shattering sound. They look up and they see Interstate 10 rolling up onto itself away from the Treme. Each pillar is replaced by old-growth oak trees, resurrecting a vibrant Black Creole neighborhood and the earth reclaiming cement and asphalt. Upon arrival in Greenwood, I saw the same pattern of Negro removal, by way of Interstate 244. And I introduced this Egungun spy boy suit to the place in August 2020. So what I share is the flag, the suit, and the video, and those are a document of this invocation and visioning. I'm gonna move us over to that corner. So also reorienting time, I find myself reckoning with the archive. In the East, honoring Laura and L.D. Nelson, in Meet Me in Okima, and in the North, General Harriet Tubman. So this piece, entitled General Harriet Tubman's Pension or Combahee Uprising, is a handwoven cloak or coverlet, and original overshot pattern that I created dedicated to Harriet Tubman, who was born into slavery, set herself free, and then became a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She was a spy for the Union Army, a persistent activist for African enlisted people to get their pensions, and a visionary, having seen in dreams, quote, "My people are free." I see this cloak and cover for General Tubman as a conductor and as a soldier in the Civil War. And the title refers to the money owed her for her service in the Civil War, as well as marking the amazing mission she led at the Combahee River, where she gathered intelligence from local enslaved Africans about locations of mines in the river and led a Black regiment by boat in a surprise attack on Confederate troops on June 1st and 2nd, 1863. This attack freed up to 750 Africans. This piece is speculative. What would the coverlet that could double as a cloak for General Tubman look like? How will we be free? While looking for coverlet patterns, I found a contemporary pattern that reconstructed one found in a photograph of Abraham Lincoln in a tent on the field at Antietam. While I was interested in this approach to the archive, I like to resurrect and speculate, I decided that the coverlet that I would want to reconstruct should honor Harriet Tubman, not Abraham Lincoln. I developed this pattern as a variation on Pine Blossom and Wall of Jericho, and these are both sort of traditional patterns that I learned about in a book called On Coverlets. That's an oral history of Tennessee weavers through overshot coverlets. The Pine Blossom pattern that I use as a base is attributed to Aunt Callie, a freed woman. This piece is also in conversation with Mary Madison's book, Plantation Weavers Remember, an Oral History, and it's in that tableau, by the by. So Mary Madison gathers oral histories from WPA slave narratives that document the role of enslaved Africans that they had processing, dyeing, and weaving cotton and wool on plantations in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and the Carolinas. The subtitle, said to have been made by slaves, refers to how enslaved Africans' labor and weaving knowledge embedded in African textiles is under-recognized, if at all. And then the color palette of the panels are meant to be both camouflage. So there's the blues and purples of the night sky on this side. On this panel, there's like the browns and the greens and the rusts of the woods that Harriet Tubman knew really well. And then bling. So the gold is the bling in tribute of Harriet Tubman. And this is a prototype for display. I'm developing a pattern and colors and trying to understand where the actual tribute cloth should live once it's completed. So this is a prototype, one in many. While weaving this piece, I listened to the experimental contemporary Black band called Harriet Tubman. I also listened to Black Monument Ensemble and the audiobook of Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments, Intimate Histories of Riotous Black Girls, Troublesome Women, and Queer Radicals by Saidiya Hartman. I'll just turn our attention to the East. So Laura Nelson and her son, LD, were lynched from the old School Town Road Bridge in Okemah, Oklahoma, May 25th, 1911. A photograph taken by the itinerant photographer G.H. Farnham of the lynching and then newspaper accounts tell the story of their deaths. Their story and wanting to know about their lives brought me to Indian Territory in 2003 and again in 2020. A great deal of my artistic practice is in service of creating an elegy to Laura and L.D. Nelson so that together we may bear witness to our entangled histories and begin to redistribute the weight of and responsibility for the legacies and violence against Black people in this country. I decided to make a tribute cloth to Laura Nelson. It's made of natural cotton. I created a pattern for this prototype by experimenting with a few different Huck lace patterns that I learned from Lynn Tedder at Waterworks. This shawl or tribute cloth is simple. It has glints of lace and beads and flies just above our heads. What you see here is a second try. Among all the lessons that I've learned in the first try, the main message was that weaving, working with my hands and feet and the loom in this way is a meditation that requires all of my attention. Laura Nelson demanded all of my attention. So with each thread, I counted winding the warp and threading the warp, I say her name. 1, Laura Nelson. 2, Laura Nelson. 3, Laura Nelson. 4, Laura Nelson. I also decided it would be important to show the beginnings and the ends of threads by adding a bead each time the thread runs out and you have to add another. So I want to thank Natani for the beautiful mismatched repurposed beads that she contributed to this practice. I wanted to reveal the how of making this quiet piece of cotton. I was also thinking about how in some traditions, regalia made by hand includes a mistake to identify the maker or the family. These mistakes are our inheritance. This is also a prototype because it doesn't feel appropriate to me to exhibit a tribute cloth in a gallery or to sell it. While weaving this piece, I listened to a SoundCloud playlist of Sahel Blues, Al-Sara and the Nubatones, Jesse Mayhem Phil, and Joy Harjo's album, I Pray for My Enemies. I guess we can kind of stay here, that's good. Ways of looking and becoming, I remember. She has taught me we must learn to see. In Bell Hooks' essay, it's a deep conversation with her relationship with her grandmother and the beauty that Baba created from whatever was on hand as a testament to the rich contribution of poor and rural Black folks to the Black aesthetics. So in the planning stages of this exhibition, I asked friends what have they learned from their grandmothers. Almost everyone spoke about making everyday objects beautiful, transforming and reusing everything. Nothing was trash. And everyone shared memories of small areas throughout the living spaces where small objects would be collected, arranged, rearranged, and transformed as tableau. And that resonated with my experience as well. At each corner, I create a tableau. So a video or sonic meditation, a flag made from repurposed materials, and a handmade egungun suit or garment. These commit to making with what you have, repurpose, reworking, transforming energy as a daily practice and a tribute to our grandparents' vision. And the tableau in the north, which is where we are here, speaks directly to Bell Hooks's essay, Aesthetics of Black Aesthetics. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the flags, mostly because I don't really have a clue about how to talk about the flags. I began making them in 2020. RuleReverse, which is the one in the south with the RuleReverse egungun. That one is pretty much an evil eye. It's protection for the egungun who carries it. The large one that's over the collective altar, yeah, let's just go over there and visit that flag. Yeah, so the flag behind Marlon's head, that's an evil eye. That's to protect this egungun that's holding it. And then this one, the Love is Rule, this was made and activated as a dedication to Miss Joy McCondishy's Century Walk on June 1st, 2021. Miss Joy invited artists to, she invited us to contribute to her installation and walk. And this walk would follow the footsteps of her grandmother and family members from Greenwood, away from the violence of the race massacre, north to the unknown. So this flag is my contribution. I carried it along the path of the railroad, and it anchored that experience in its weight, how it caught the wind, and signaled what I wanted to bring to this ritual and ceremony she created for our community. For Strange and Oppositional, we place it over the collective altar, and I've made it a two-sided flag to play with gravity and bridge inside 108 Contemporary and outside of Greenwood through the windows. I do think that the flags are part of this work of engaging ceremony, daily practice, everyday objects, and listening that Francesca and I consider and offer in this project. The flags fly, they lift up, they hang as banners. The flags prompt embodiment. I would want you to feel like you could grab that flag, hold the stick, and walk with it. The two newest flags are the rule is share and surrender. So surrender is that white flag that's by the tribute cloth to Laura Nelson, and also by this beautiful piece, Strange Fruit, by Francesca. So surrender was a complete surprise. It's the end or the beginning test cloth, what some weavers call the bread towel. So it's the extra that you weave to either set the weave at the beginning or to not waste thread at the end. So as I pulled it off the loom and cut it from the main warp of Laura Nelson's tribute cloth, I knew it was a flag. I mean, in a lot of ways, all of the suits that are in here are gungun suits or tribute cloths or veneration to ancestors. And at the same time, like for instance, if you read the title, you would know this got retired. It will not be used again. I can talk more about that, but, and those are prototypes, but they're meant to be gungun suits. These veneration. As far as where weaving plays into that, I mean, I think spider is important, as weaving of stories. And so there's something about that, and that there's a lot of crossover in terms of many different indigenous peoples of Turtle Island plus African people's stories around spider and those weavings. So if you meet a spider, instead of shooing it away, you might ask, like, what's the message? What's the story? What am I meant to learn here? And that's a practice. And then, my mother's side is Greek, and we're from a small island. Well, it's not that small, actually, Lesbos. And there's a long history or practice of weaving, and there are these beautiful paintings from the early 20th century, late 19th century of women weaving in Mytilene that are really compelling to me. It's like the first time I saw them, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I see something's here. And they were also well known for silk, for cultivating silkworms and mulberry trees. So, I do think there are lots of other connections. I was in the dream, I understood that I had woven before and that I needed to weave again. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.